one of the biggest issues is for entrepreneurs as they're scaling is they don't have an exit plan when they start. So that's an issue. Another issue is many times the entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs. So they have too many irons in the fire. Right?
It's incredible, but you're so right. And I actually guilty of both. When I started my business, I never thought I needed to have an exit plan until I finally got coached. And now I have an exit plan. And I also fell into the serial entrepreneurship trap. You know, I'm running 7 businesses now. The difference, though, is that I learned how to delegate. Welcome to the Break Free Podcast. I am your host, David Mancella. We created this podcast to celebrate the lives of incredible entrepreneurs, amazing people that are living life in their own terms, and they're helping making this world a better place, not only for us, but for the generations to come. And today we have with us Dr. Patty Ann. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. It's so great to be here. I couldn't wait to be a guest, so I'm honored.
Beautiful. Patty, can you please tell us your full name? What do you do, and where do you live?
Oh my goodness, let's see, my full name. So my official full name that only my mother ever called me is Patricia Ann Tublin is my married name, which I go by. And okay, so my full name, where do I live? I'll go there. So, as you can tell from this beautiful Oxford accent, I'm originally from what I like to say is the center of the universe, meaning Brooklyn, New York, in the States. Uh-huh. And then I moved to Connecticut after 13 years in New York because I went in college, actually New York proper. I went to NYU. I had a whole bunch of degrees from there, so I lived in the city. And then I raised my family for 30 some odd years in Connecticut. And then I recently, like literally just a couple of months ago, moved to Naples, Florida, where I am right now. But, you know, if you ask me where I'm from, I sort of kind of still say New York, even though I haven't really lived in Manhattan for my whole adult life.
Right.
And then, did you ask me what I do? Is that the other question?
Yes, what do you do for a living?
Okay, so I am a true entrepreneur because my joke is I'm not hireable. I would never want to work for me. No, just joking. And so I have a company called Relationship Toolbox that I'm the CEO and founder of. And basically, I'm a relationship expert, a human behavior, performance, and motivation expert, where I work on all relationship skills in a business that drives the bottom line. And one of the niches I have is I work with entrepreneurial partners because it's very much like a marriage. And I help them, I will help an entrepreneur vet the appropriate partner for them if they're thinking about partnering with another entrepreneur. And then many times I'll also be brought into a relationship, many times by another coach, where what's happened is the business wasn't really meeting their numbers. So a coach would be brought in and they would look at the business model, and the business model would be fine. And the coach would say, everybody's just killing each other. The culture is toxic, the relationships are toxic. And that's where they bring me in as a trust expert. And many times it has to do with the partners not getting along and a lot of back channeling. Or one example is I had a company that developed apps during COVID. And apps was going through the roof, like it was on fire. And they were doing okay, but not as well as they should have been doing. So when I went in there, I very, very quickly found out the head of engineering did not like the head of sales. He actually detested him. That relationship became toxic. It infiltrated their departments. So now you have, check this out, the sales department not talking to the engineering department. And you wonder why they're not meeting their numbers on sales, right? Yeah. And there's no way you would know that if you're just looking at the business aspect. So I work with every aspect of a business other than the business itself. And then I also work with, I will work with an intimate couple if at least one of the two is an entrepreneur. So they can both be entrepreneurs. Only one can be an entrepreneur. They can work in the business together. They can it doesn't matter. And that's where I marry my expertise. I have 2 masters. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. So most of my coaching, the baseline of my coaching was 13 years of being in graduate school, right? And then I learned coaching on top of that. And that's where the human performance and behavior expert comes in. And so it's basically a lot about rebuilding trust, restoring trust. A lot of it is about helping people improve their emotional intelligence, how to manage anger and frustration. Because 80% of business is relationships. And what I feel strongly about, and I could be wrong, David, but there are very few real business problems. There's personal problems that show up as business problems.
Yeah, and you know what? You're completely right. If the business has a model where whatever they sell brings in more money than what they spent, they have a profitable business. That's simple. Exactly. What's difficult is the relationships, the negative emotions, the backstabbing, the culture, their values. What do they stand for? And that's where you come in, right?
Exactly right. And I've written 2 best-selling books that Barbara Corcoran wrote testimonials on. One is called, I think you got a kick out of this one, Not Tonight, Dear, I've Got a Business to Run. Enrich your marriage while prospering in your business. And I show entrepreneurial couples how to create a business plan that complements rather than competes against their personal plan. Mm-hmm. And then I do a lot with money and women and money because all decisions are emotional. And I keynoted around the world, including Dubai, Nigeria. And as far as I know, I'm the only American woman that's given a keynote in front of a mixed gender audience on business leadership in Saudi Arabia. That's my story. I'm sticking to it, and I love it.
You actually went to Saudi Arabia to give a keynote?
Yep.
That's impressive because they don't like women down there.
You know, the women are so impressive. With the exception of the Middle East, the women in Saudi Arabia are the most educated women. Because the previous king, they had all this oil money back in the day where, oil was black gold, right? So the king had a scholarship set up where everyone was able to go abroad and get an education, men and women. And what happened was, so the women went to the finest universities in the world, MIT, Oxford, Harvard, the finest universities in the world. Biochemistry degrees, engineering, like medicine, law. But then they would go back to Saudi Arabia and they couldn't work, which is bizarre. So when the oil crashed a couple of years ago, the crown prince, who I think he was educated in the States, and he realized that the kingdom almost collapsed when oil prices went down. So the crown prince realized we have to diversify. So that never happens again. And it was almost like we have these educated women. We're already on second base. Let them work. Right mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of cultural dynamics going on. So I was there actually early winter, I think, but it was right that March, they were giving women the right to drive, which is sort of kind of a bizarre thing to hear, right? Because if you're going to work, you have to drive.
Yeah, of course.
So they're trying, there's been some missteps since then. I'm not going to get into politics, but mm-hmm. yeah, it was a fascinating experience. And pretty much the message that I came to realize when I went there was, all right, they love American women. They love the women love American women. The men love American women. They don't want to be married to us because we think too much for ourselves. But concept, and I am the quintessential, not just the quintessential American woman, I am the quintessential New York mm-hmm. American woman. But the message was, we want you to help us modernize women, not westernize us. Right? And that's right, you have to respect their culture. And I was a good fit because, besides my credentials and stuff, I've been married once for many, many years. I'm the mother of 4 children, right? So I have the values that they want to espouse. If I had an alternative lifestyle, not that there's anything wrong with it, right? And this is America, we can do whatever we want. But that's not true in other countries, and that sure as heck isn't true in Saudi Arabia. It was a great experience, spoke on work-life balance. You know, the women there, even though they're so wealthy, the men hold the money. So there's a whole dynamic shifting, very little financial literacy there, partly because they have so much of it, but it was fascinating, really fascinating.
That's incredible. Also, it's admirable what you have been able to accomplish in your life and your career, being a mom of 4 kids. Is that not simple to do? And you have a doctorate.
What I always like to say, I'm sorry?
And you have a doctorate career, like you actually went to school for a long time.
Well, I got my doctorate when I was raising my kids. As my kids got a little bit older, I got my doctorate. But, you know, what I always love to say is, you know, they had a father. And my husband was great and is great and was very involved raising the kids. Now, he was not the mother. He wasn't making the pediatrician appointments, but for the most part, he was very much hands-on, very devoted to his family. And honestly, if I didn't have that, I don't know if I would be here today. And I'm not saying it's all him. I mean, I'm the one that wrote the books. I'm the one that went to school.
Yeah.
But he supported the environment I needed. You know, here's my joke, David. If he came home to a hot home-cooked meal, he would think somebody died.
Yes.
Right? And you know, and I'm a big one for money is for outsourcing. I outsourced a lot. I outsourced cleaning people. I had a lot of babysitting. You know, when I had my daughter, so I had my twins, I had my 3rd son 2 years later. So I had 3 boys, 2 and under. I don't recommend it, but it's great now. And then I had my daughter. So I had 4 children in 6 years. When I had my daughter, and we did not have this money then, I actually hired a babysitter just for my daughter. Because at that stage of the game, I knew enough about childcare, at least in the States, that no matter how much more money I might have paid my babysitter who I loved, she just couldn't take on more, right? So I had somebody to just stay home with my daughter. So she's not being picked up and, naps being interrupted. So I had 2 babysitters at one point. Everybody thought I was crazy, but I knew what worked for me, right? I knew what I needed to be able to live my life the way I wanted to, quite frankly, which is why I became an entrepreneur. I could have had the most understanding boss in the world, but he's not going to let me go to 4 plays in a week, every day of the week at 10 o'clock. After the 2nd play, he's going to be like, wait, didn't you go Monday and Tuesday? Wait, you're going to tell me no? Yeah, we're not doing this. So I think I'll just work for myself. That's what happened, really. That's the truth.
Actually, one of the big successes of my own business, as you know, I run a software consulting firm. We build applications for other businesses. But one of the biggest successes is that there is a lot of very senior developers that are women in my company. And it's because since I started this company. Pardon?
You're a smart man. That's right.
Well, because I have 3 kids and I have a wife, and I know how hard it was for her, and she was a software scientist too. So, and she didn't necessarily get the flexibility. So I decided to give flexibility to these ladies that got hired at the company. And one of them has been with us for over 15 years. So I've seen her kids grow, and she never had restrictions on when she needed to go take them to the doctors, to the place. As long as the work got done at the end of the week, everybody was happy, and she's one of our best performers. And that's why we actually kept attracting this type of people, you know?
Well, so I always say, and I really do mean it, when you empower women, you empower everyone. Now, I do have to say this, though. However, I do not like the way the thinking is about women, woe with me, and we're a victim. If you don't like what's going on in your life, if you don't like what's going on in your career, you know who's responsible for that? You. Right? We can't wait for politicians to change things. So take charge of your life, and you are where you are because of the choices you made. And that sounds very harsh, but I believe that you got to lose of a husband. Well, you made that choice. Ditch him. If he's, or make it work for you, right? If you're not where you are in your career, find out what you need to do to get there. Get a mentor, get a coach, get more education, get a new job. But to just sit there and moan and groan and bemoan where you are in life, that's wasted energy. You're never going to elevate yourself.
Beautiful. And you're right. Actually, self-pity is the reason why many, many people suffer. not only women, right? I actually had stages in my life where it was poor me and the world against me. And I didn't have anything to do with my suffering. It was all about everybody else being unfair to me. And that's what the points where I almost lost everything. Until I woke up and I realized, no, it's my fault. And I can fix it.
Well,
and even it's not my fault, I can fix it.
Right. So either you're a victim or you're a victor.
Yeah.
Your choice. It's your choice. Because, let's look at COVID, right? Let's take COVID for a moment. Everybody, every company was faced with the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
Some thrived and some went under. Some were able to pivot, right? Some couldn't, like depending upon their business. They like a restaurant where you sit down, right? They had no choice. But I also know, because my son didn't have to sit down as much, although he did, but what he also did was he upped big time his takeout orders.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't let anybody go. I mean, they cut back their hours, but we were all faced with the same situation. It was on minds. All right, we all panicked for 5 minutes, but some people panicked for 3 years.
Yeah.
And other people panicked for 5 minutes and then said, okay, now what are we going to do? And that's, my mother used to say, necessity is the mother of invention.
That's true.
And where there's a will, there's a way.
And I love that you chose the psychology path. But tell me, why do you think you needed to get a coaching degree after all your schooling?
No, it wasn't a coaching degree. It was just coaching certifications, right? Because it's just a different way of approaching and helping, right? I also wanted to get all the business information. And psychology, the traditional psychology is a psychopathology model, right? We're looking back, what we did wrong, what our patterns are. Coaching for me, and quite frankly, I think I'm really good at it because I do have a background different than others, is about, how do you look at that pattern and now move forward, right? Mm-hmm. So coaching is very much forward driven, whereas psychology tends to be more past driven, and then also what I'm really, really loving now is neuroscience, because now we can show how our emotions affect everything. Like we now know we feel before we think. We feel. Decisions are based on feelings. Now, salespeople have always known this. Any good salesperson will tell you, you buy based on feeling, not on logic.
Yeah.
Which is why all companies should have a man and a woman go out to a sales call together. But that's a different conversation.
That's fantastic. When did you decide to, so you already told me that you decided to go on business because of your kids, right? So you needed the flexibility. Was that the only reason? How did this evolve?
No, actually, okay. So that was a part of it. But actually what happened was I was working with the couple and the man was a CEO. And we were working on communication skills. And this is back when the dinosaurs ruled the earth. And and the wife turned to the man and said, this is what your leadership team needs. Nobody knows how to communicate. And he looked at me, he goes, she's right. Can you come in and help my team, leadership communication skills? And I looked at him, I said, well, I'm a psychologist. And I said, yeah, I can figure it out. And that's when I went to get more learning, right? So it's like Dr. Melfi on Billions, if you watch Billions. But the foundation, the psychology foundation is it really sets me apart from the crowd, I believe. But the coaching, it's a different way of tackling a problem and looking at it in the service of going forward, right? And like in therapy, you also don't have a personal relationship with the client. With coaching, they all become my friends, right? We share personal, it's much more of I would say, an authentic, genuine relationship as opposed to a therapy relationship, right? And it's also very multidimensional because I've yet to work with a business CEO or a coach or an owner, and I work with a lot of business coaching, where it hasn't delved into personal issues, because wherever you go, there you are. And I've yet to work with an entrepreneur on a personal issue or a marriage issue where those challenges don't show up in business, right? So I'm looking at the person, because wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
So that's the approach.
Yeah, that's, this whole concept of work-life balance, when I really analyzed it, I was like, you know what? I'm always thinking about my family when I'm in my office, and I'm always thinking about my office when I'm with my family. So instead of fighting for time, what I do now is just try to focus on whatever I'm doing at the moment. But don't feel guilty because a problem from business showed up in your brain when you were having dinner for 5 seconds or 10 seconds.
Well, what you just described is what many, many working moms feel. And what I tell them is when you're at work, be at work, be totally focused. Because first of all, the energy spent worrying about not being with your kids, or really more accurately, the guilt, it serves no purpose. Mm-hmm. There's no value in it. You're just sucking energy out of the work that you're doing now. And you want to be the best that you can be when you are where you are. So focus on your work. You can't do anything about the kids. Well, mm-hmm. And when you are with your kids, who gives a rat's ass about what's going on at work?
Yeah.
Focus on your kids. Mm-hmm. Don't be distracted. Put the phone down, for God's sake. Right? Yeah. Because you can't solve the problem. And if you are texting and emailing when you're with your kids, make no mistake about it, you're shortchanging your kids. So if you want to be the best mother that you can be, when you're with your kids, be with your kids. And when you're at work, you'll be at work. Because otherwise the energy is just wasted. It's like worrying energy. All worrying does is zap you of energy. So you're 1,000% right.
And then you make more mistakes too in both, right? So you don't do anything right anyway.
Yes. And then nobody gets the best of you.
Exactly. That's wonderful. For your coaching certification, can you tell the audience if they want to become coaches, where can they go? Where is the best place to become a coach?
Oh gosh, I got to tell you, I don't think there are too many good ones out there. So no, I can't answer. I would suggest, like there's these coaches that have their coaching certifications. To me, it's like, I don't care that you're John Smith certified. Like, there's a John Maxwell certification I have, but there was a reason for that. I went into that for a very specific reason. But I would actually recommend that you get coached by a good coach. Mm-hmm. And this way it could be tailored and uniquely designed for you, because all my work is individualized. It's all created. Like, I don't know what I'm offering anybody, so I get on a call with them.
Right.
Like I have 6 months, I have a year, I have VIP days, I have half VIP days. But short of that, I really need to see, what do you need? What are you looking for? What do you want? I'm not going to try to sell you what I think you want. Mm-hmm. I need to hear what you want, and then I will tell you, well, this is what I can offer. If you want a chicken and I only have a cow, I'm not going to try to sell you the cow. But if you have a chicken and I have an egg and I think it will work, then I'll share that with you.
Right.
And I'm sort of kind of usually right.
That's so nice. And so in your
there's
career,
other people that have that area of expertise, mm-hmm. right? There's other people. So if you can be a resource either yourself or to give them. So much of my career has been built on other people, other coaches referring to me, because they don't have the expertise that I have. They have the business expertise. They don't have the relationship expertise. They don't have the cultural expertise.
Right. It's wonderful. And I have met very few people that do what you do, because mm-hmm. what you're approaching entrepreneurs and giving them the skills that they need to run their business successfully outside of the P&L, right? Outside of the profit and loss statements, right?
That's right.
Tell me, with all your years of experience, have you noticed patterns of entrepreneurs, or where are their most problems, and how do you help them overcome them?
Sure. So they can't get out of their own way. They can't get out of their own way, and they try to, they try to do everything all the time. Like, it's very difficult for them to delegate. They very much believe they're the only ones that can do it the right way. So I would say a lot of that is the issue. Let me think one more question. I'm thinking about a couple of people. And they, for the most part, I mean, entrepreneurs, we can be weird ducks, but they very, very much care about their people. They just might not know how to appropriately demonstrate it, you know, and sometimes they're too quick to move and sometimes they're too slow to move. You know, and then one of the biggest issues is for entrepreneurs as they're scaling is they don't have an exit plan when they start. So that's an issue. Another issue is many times the entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs. So they have too many irons in the fire. Right?
It's incredible, but you're so right. And I actually guilty of both. When I started my business, I never thought I needed to have an exit plan until I finally got coached. And now I have an exit plan. And I also fell into the serial entrepreneurship trap. You know, I'm running 7 businesses now. The difference, though, is that I learned how to delegate. And that was my biggest problem. I thought I was the one doing the best job and I couldn't delegate anything. That was me 15 years ago.
I think that was the first, was that the first one I said?
Yeah, that was the first one you said. Exactly what happened to me. The minute that I learned the who not how method, the hire people better than me method, that hire don't. So the minute that I learned, don't invest time improving your weak parts. Actually, hire your weak parts and invest your time on polishing your best abilities, your unique abilities.
Correct.
That's when the world opened up for me, right?
Who not how. Who not
right.
how.
Exactly. It's so nice. Do you ever do your do you have an environment where you actually have a group setting where you have multiple entrepreneurs in one room, or is only one-on-one?
No, I do. Yeah, I do that as well. Yeah, I haven't. I'm working on a mastermind, but I'll do a lot of workshops. I'll do like mini events where, we do that. We do, workshops. There's a lot of different ways. It depends upon what I'm feeling at the time and what I'm seeing the need is, and then I'll let people know. Yeah.
That is wonderful. And I asked because one of the key factors for me to grow my business was when I started joining business groups. I started with Vistage, and then...
oh, you did? Did you like Vistage?
I did it for about 3 years.
Oh,
it was,
okay.
For the time, I think it was great. I think you keep evolving, right? Because I started with Vistage, and I ended up with Dan Sullivan, with Strategic Coach, and now I feel I'm on the best business group in the world. And I wasn't ready for Dan back then. You know what I mean? Like it took me 7 years of growth until I got... There is a saying that when you're ready, the teacher will come.
Exactly. Are you in Dan's top group, or are you in the other group? I
have been invited to go to the top group. I haven't. So I started the top group, the 10X. I started in 2019 at the very top. But now he made a new group, and I'm supposed to go there. So I probably moved there within a year or two.
So has he always been your coach, Dan?
Always. I only had Dan. Yeah.
He's a great guy. Him and Babs, they're really a special couple. They've changed the lives of so many people. It's really incredible.
Yeah. And when it comes down to it, Patty, I think it's all emotional, like you said. It doesn't matter how successful or how miserable you are in business. If your emotions are not right, or if your emotions are right, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And also on who wants to work with you and for you.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the example I give, like with entrepreneurial partners that I work with, is the one with Apple, right? Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, when they started Apple, they were best friends. They created a product that nobody knew they even needed. They created an iPhone that we didn't even know we needed. And 20 years later, we literally panic if we can't find it. You can't be home without it. And not American Express, it's your iPhone, right? That was the product of a healthy entrepreneurial partnership. When that relationship became toxic, Steve Wozniak left the company and Steve Jobs was thrown out of the company he started, which it's not that unusual now, but back then, that was unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. And that was all because the entrepreneurial partnership went south.
Interesting, eh?
Right? If you think, the history of Apple.
Yeah, and it's all based on emotions, right? You know, I keep telling people that there is not, the worst failure for me is achieving all your financial goals and still feeling empty inside.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
Right? And for me, the best
Well,
success is like trying to achieve your goals while being fulfilled already, right?
Well, so happiness is being content with who you are and where you are, but that doesn't mean that you have to settle for it, right? Because human nature is such, and it's good in a way. Like, if I make $50,000, I'll be happy. And then you make $50,000. I just want $75,000. And then you make 75. I just want 100,000, right? I just want my dream house. Get your dream house. I just want a beach house, right? So there's something in human nature that wants us to continually aspire. That's good, but the aspiration shouldn't dilute the success of where you are now, right? So if you think about man, the beginning of time, right? It's cold, so we need a fire. Let's get a fire. We made a fire, right? Then we weren't content with just the fire. We want a house, so we make a roof, right? And then we discover a wheel. And then, wait, there's got to be a better way than a wheel. Then we develop the car, or the cart with the goat, or whatever. So humanity has always aspired for more. I think that's good. I think it makes us evolve. But we can't lose sight of being happy with where we are and what we have as we pursue more.
Yeah.
Right. And that's more of anything.
Mm. And it's content and gratitude. Yeah.
Gratitude. I mean, I know so many incredibly wealthy people. And I know a woman in particular. She's so wealthy. She runs around with this $7,000 pocketbook. Where's my pocketbook? I don't know where the hell it is. I think I just bought one for $19.99 at like Marshall, like $19.99. I could care less. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I love nice stuff. I do. But it doesn't define me, right? I have my fancy stuff. I have my fancy jewelry. I have my fancy car. But this one particular person, there's an insatiable need to buy more. Like it's an empty hole because she's trying to fill up from the outside what needs to come from within. Mm-hmm. And that's what you don't want to have happen, because that's a bottomless pit. And that's sad when you have that. Because no matter how much you have, no matter how much more you want, there will always be countless people that have less that would give their right on to have what you have.
Yeah, it's true. And also there are always going to be people that have a lot more than you do, no matter how high you go up.
and that's great. God bless them. You know what?
Exactly.
Usually, or at least I like to believe, I'm a firm fan of capitalism. I might get hate mail. There's been no other model that's brought more people out of poverty. That's why everyone in socialist countries want to come here, right? If you've lived under socialism and you lived under capitalism and you want to repeat that model, okay, talk to me. But if you haven't lived under it, you don't know what you're talking about. If I was born in any other country, I'd be in somebody's laundry basement folding their laundry, right? So the desire was always there. But what I love about people that have a lot of money is I believe many of them give so much to others. Like, I think I don't want to get into politics, but I think Warren Buffett and Bill Gates started the Giving Pledge, right? So they're giving 85% of their wealth away before they die or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know what? I'd rather individuals decide who they want to give their money to than me give it to the government and then decide to piss it away on something. Yeah. Like, I think David Geffen, he grew up in Brooklyn, made it really big in something to do with movies, some kind of agent in the West Coast. I don't think he ever was married. Maybe he was. I know he was a gay guy. I know he has no children. Then he said, I'm done with the West Coast. He came back to the East Coast. Carnegie Hall now is named Geffen Hall. Like, this man is giving away all his wealth to these wonderful causes. Why would I ever begrudge anybody great. I go into somebody's beautiful home. I'm like, good for you. This is good. I usually teach them. I'm like, oh, this is good for starter home. When you make a couple of bucks, you can upscale, you know? But good for them. Good for them. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I always believe that when you give, you get more than the people that are receiving. Right? It's like
change lives.
Especially when you give unconditionally, right?
Well, anonymously is the biggest unconditional give, right? Give anonymously.
Yeah. Well, like it says in the Bible, right? Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is giving. Because if you make a buzz about it, you already gotten your reward, right?
I don't know. I don't mind. I don't mind somebody wanting their name on a building if, what is it, Rockefeller University, right? The science, research, and, beautiful hospital. I don't care that Rockefeller's name is on it. To me, it's still helping many people. Now, I guess you could argue all day, should you have your name on it? Shouldn't you? I don't know. I don't have that kind of money. NYU Langone, right? Ken Langone. His parents came to the States from Italy. He will say that's the greatest gift his parents gave, coming to the States.
Mm-hmm.
He started one of the co-founders of Home Depot. His father was a plumber. Co-founded Home Depot. He's got so much money. I don't know what he does at NYU, but his name's on the building. Great. NYU Langone, good.
And that's what you get when you have democracy and capitalism. And I'm willing to give my life for that, because if you look at the other systems, when you get freedom, because we are in the free world, right? I live in Canada and we're very similar, although in Canada it's a lot more socialist than the Americans. But
you guys have gotten a lot of problems. Well, we are too. But
it's
a great neighbor with you guys. I mean, we couldn't have a better neighbor than Canada. We have so lucky.
But you know what it is, right? Like, you have freedom. His father was a plumber. He was born in the USA and he became a billionaire in one generation. Why? Because you have rule of law, you have democracy, and you have capitalism. He could have chosen to be a plumber like his dad and stay like a plumber, and that would have been fine. But he had the freedom to choose. You see?
And may the best man or woman win, right? Absolutely. Listen, I'm no Ken Langone. I'm no billionaire by a long shot. But my life is so many levels. If you would have shown me the life I have now, which of course I take for granted, right? I take it for granted. If you would have shown me as a little girl that I would be living this life, I would have thought I died and went to heaven, right? But I was raised education. I was raised with values. I never once thought I couldn't do anything because I was a woman. Like, maybe I was naive, but that never once crossed my mind. Never. I'd like, wait, just because I have a different organ than you, I can't do it. Are you nuts? Like, I just wouldn't listen. I would just drown it out, for better and worse. But I have a good life. Am I a bazillionaire? Not by a long shot, but that's okay. I made certain choices. My husband made certain choices. And you know what? We got it pretty damn good.
And it doesn't really matter, right? And that's the beautiful part. Yeah. If you really look, how much do you really need to be happy? It's so little, especially in North America. We have all the services,
True, but there's something to be said for a nice lifestyle. Like, money can buy you happiness to a point, right? It gives you opportunities and choice. For example, I haven't cleaned in 45 years. My mother spent her whole life cleaning. I saw that. I'm like, that's not for me. There's got to be a better way.
Right.
Take a vacation when I want. If I don't feel like cooking, I'm going out to dinner or I'm ordering, right? There's a lot to be said for that. And that makes me happy.
but that's what I mean. But all the things that you're talking about, with a $75,000 a year, you can actually have access to some of that. That's my point, that you don't need to have billions to have all this comfort, especially in North America, right?
Yeah. I think they've raised it from 75. It's not going to be in New York City 75, but to your point, right? You don't.
We're all in Kansas City.
Yeah. Me, Appalachia. Yes. But to your point, and really, it's the mindset, right? It's your mindset. Do you need to be the Kardashian wealth? No,
No.
you don't. You want money to give you comfort. You don't want money to be your God, right? That's money gone awry.
Choose your master, right? Either you serve your money or your money serves you, right?
That's right.
For me, I rather have God as my master, and I want to be the master of my money. And they're not incompatible. You just got to choose who you're going to serve, right?
That's right.
And it's so easy to fall into that trap, though, right? Like when I started becoming very successful financially, I became financially independent in 2014. And what did I do? Instead of being grateful and be content, I started comparing myself to other entrepreneurs that had 10 times as much as I had.
Even more, yeah.
So I wanted more and more and more, to the point where, my life was miserable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And what happens is, even with tremendous wealth, you still have problems. You still worry about your kids. Somebody can still get sick. Like, you might have access to different resources, but it doesn't make you problem free. Yeah. There is a percentage of people that you look at and you're like, they are waltzing down the yellow brick road, but they're not. You just don't know.
Yeah. And sometimes the problems are even bigger. I actually truly believe, now that I have been blessed financially so well, the more material possessions that I acquire, the more things I have to worry about. Even if you delegate it to other people that take care of them. For example, somebody told me, the second best day that you are happy buying a boat is the first when you buy it, and the best day of your life is when you sell it.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm very conscious about that,
The issue with tremendous wealth, tremendous wealth, right? Like everybody knows, like you see Mark Cuban, right? Is unless you have your friends from before you were anybody, you don't know who your friends are, right? Like you said, you're involved with Strategic Coach. I'm a very dear friend of Lee Brower, one of the strategic coaches. Do you know Lee?
I don't know him personally, but I've heard of him.
And if you have an opportunity to know him personally, you will never meet a finer man. You will never, ever meet a finer man. And, I think it's an expression he quotes. I don't know if it's his expression, but he said, many entrepreneurs have deal friends, not real friends, right? And I think that's true for very, very wealthy people. So when you have a lot of money, it's hard to know who you can really trust. Mm-hmm. And that, if you, say you're Tom Brady, can you go out to dinner and have a meal at a restaurant with your kids? It's not so easy to be famous either. So be happy with what we have. Be content, be grateful.
And sometimes you're so right, and sometimes it becomes a curse, right? When you don't even know the person that are around you are with you because of the money or because they really love you. It's so hard.
Yep.
I think, Ed Sheeran, my son follows him because my son is a musician too, and he told me that
Ed Sheeran,
he went back to his high school sweetheart and he got married with her. Ed Sheeran.
Yes, I knew that.
Right?
He knew her. I did hear that. And you know what? I always liked him. Like I saw there was a clip that he was walking through a mall and there was a kid singing, with the microphone on stage at the mall, right? His song, he went up and he sung it with her. But he wasn't upstaging her. It was beautiful. I loved him then. And then I heard he married his high school sweetheart. And I said, keeper. He's a keeper.
But it makes sense. So why? Because he knew that she loved him before he got famous and rich, right?
Right.
Buddy, thank you so much for your time. I want to respect your time. Thank you for being so generous with the audience. One last question before we end the podcast.
Sure.
If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write in?
That is so easy. Love.
Love.
Love. The answer. Answer to every question.
Love is the answer. And it's funny because I totally believe that God is love and love is God. And it's true. Once you love unconditionally, your life becomes better, right?
Yep. Define however you want.
Love.
Even if you don't believe in God, you can believe in love. Whatever you call it.
Right.
Because when people are driving by, they'll see that. It will evoke a feeling. It's not going to be a negative feeling when you read love, right? You feel it. Your listeners are feeling it. If I said hate, you will feel a very different feeling.
Yeah.
Right? That's why we have to be careful what we listen to, but that's a whole other conversation. We're wrapping this up.
Dr. Patty, if people would like to follow you, inquire about your services, if they are this is an entrepreneurial podcast, so a lot of entrepreneurs will be listening to this, and I will highly recommend them to hire your services. Where can they find you online?
Thank you. So they can, so I have my own podcast, Dr. Patty Ann's podcast, so I would love for them to subscribe. It's all about real relationships. And then I have a website, Dr. Patty Ann, and you can reach out to contact me. You can send a little email about what services you want. And I'm on Instagram at Dr. Patty Ann, and I'm on Twitter, and it's all Dr. Patty Ann, so it's pretty easy.
Fantastic. Patty, thank you so much for your time again. Please keep on changing the world for a better place, to one entrepreneur at a time, and God bless. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.